So welcome everyone to the Collaborative Science for Stories series. This is Nick Sobral with the Science Collaborative. Today's webinar features a multi-reserve catalyst project that has been developing a collaborative community to support and enhance research, education, and conservation activities associated with the Motus wildlife tracking system installations across the reserve system. And you'll hear more from the members of the project team in a moment. But before we get started, I'll give a quick introduction to the reserve system, the Science Collaborative, and this series. Okay, so the reserve system. The National Estuarine Research Reserve System is a national network of 30 unique research reserves, as shown on this map, with more on the way. It's a NOAA program that works in collaboration with a local place-based partner, either a state agency, university, or nonprofit at each site. And each reserve includes programs focused on the activities you see on the slides, which are land stewardship, research and scientific monitoring, training programs for the public and local officials, and education. And the Science Collaborative supports science for estuarine and coastal decision makers by coordinating regular funding opportunities and supporting user-driven collaborative research and transfer activities that address critical coastal management needs identified by the reserves. The Collaborative Science for Estuaries series features project teams supported by the NERRS Science Collaborative, program staff, and partners. Speakers share their unique approaches to addressing current coastal and estuarine management issues, and if that sounds interesting to you, please feel free to join us for future webinars to learn about new methods to integrate experts and users into the research process and how the research results and products might inform your work. A quick note on informed consent and what we learned from this webinar series. So webinars are a very valuable learning opportunity for us as a program. Insights from speakers and participants like you can help inform how we support others in doing collaborative science, for example, in the development of future workshops, webinars, or resources such as tools, tips, and case studies to add to our guide to collaborative science, which is open access. With that in mind, we just want to inform attendees that insights or feedback you share, for example, in chat or via a webinar survey, may be used for program learning and development. Please note that if we capture a direct quote from you that we'd like to use for learning purposes, we will reach out to you to seek permission and provide an explanation of its use before we use it, and all such quotes would be used anonymously. We are grateful for the opportunity to learn alongside all of you. Last note here is on housekeeping. So all attendees are muted upon entry, and we'll be handling presentation-related questions via Zoom's Q&A feature. I believe we'll also leave time at the end to let people kind of raise hands and come off mute and verbalize questions if they'd like to do that instead. You can enter questions as they occur to you throughout the webinar, and we'll just save them in the Q&A feature, and we'll try to discuss as many as we can during the final portion of today's call. So the chat's visible to all as well. You can use it to talk amongst yourselves and ask organizers for support or technical questions if you need it. So feel free to use the chat for that. And with that, I will introduce our speakers for today. So Marae West is the board chair and science advisor for the Cape Fear Bird Observatory, Evan Buckland, co-founder and managing director at the Cape Fear Bird Observatory, and Ray Danner, senior research scientist at Althouse and Meade. And I believe Marae and Evan are up first, so I'll go ahead and turn off screen share so they can get their stuff up.
Great. All right, so thank you all so much for coming to our webinar today. Today we're going to be discussing our objectives and products we have created through this Catalyst grant through the NERRS Science Collaborative. Nick just kind of introduced us a bit, but my name is Marae West, and I'm the project lead, and I'm the board chair of the Cape Fear Bird Observatory. Evan?
Hi, I'm Evangeline Buckland, or Evan. I'm the co-founder and managing director of the Cape Fear Bird Observatory, and for this project, I was excited to be the technical lead.
Hi, everybody. Hi, thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Ray Danner, collaborative lead and a senior research scientist at Althouse and Meade.
And the Cape Fear Bird Observatory is based out of Wilmington, North Carolina. And we are a nonprofit, and we strive to do research, education, outreach, and community involvement. So the lead reserve on this project was North Carolina, and we had 17 other reserves also signed on to this project, as you can see here. So we're thrilled to have a large array of the NERRS community join in on this project with us. So just a brief project summary. So more than half the NERRS have Motus wildlife tracking stations. These are used to enhance our understanding of animal presence, movement, and the more Motus towers we get, we have an expanding database, and we really need to build a collaborative community and education and other resources along with using Motus data. And so that was kind of the goal of the project here. So we're launching a website to display comprehensive Motus data. to aid in research, education, and conservation, create accessible education materials. Evan organized some in-person education activities with the North Carolina NERR, and then establish Motus systems at 4 key sites and enhance communication cooperation among NERRS staff to align with shared objectives. And so that was kind of what we're going to be talking you through today. So first, what even is Motus? So Motus is an international collaborative research network that uses a cooperative automated radio telemetry to track small flying organisms. Usually birds, bats, and insects are the main things that are being tracked by Motus. These towers are very individual based, and there's not like a plug and play kind of way to put these up. And so this allows for really small animals to be tagged, have high temporal geographic precision over great distances, and allows a large community of practice here. So through researchers, education, other organizations, and citizens can really help be a part of this network. So who can build a tower? Anyone can build a tower. So these can be put anywhere. Ideally, they're going to be put in places that might have high migratory activity. So our priority areas would be, again, migratory pathways or other important bird areas, or possibly for one large bird study that might be being done. So let's dive into objective 1 here. So this is going to be the story map that we created. Here is a QR code if you would like to link to that yourself. We're still doing a few edits in here, so it's not completely all the way ready, but we are just about there, just a few edits left as we wrap up our project. So if you go to the story map, you're just going to see the main page here of the National Estuarine Research Reserve System's Motus stations, and this has a ton of information that we're going to go through now. So it just has some information to introduce what the NERRS system is, because this story map will hopefully be used by a wide array of folks within the reserve system and beyond. And so we want to be able to introduce what the reserve system is. So we have some really interesting information there. We have a lot of information about what Motus is of itself. And so we're hoping that this story map is kind of a one-stop shop for people to understand the NERRS, Motus, how they relate, and then have a bunch of our products here as well. So again, this is just talking more about what is Motus, why is it really super cool, why is it important. We can detect thousands of individuals across hundreds of species to help understand many biological processes. So again, this is just giving a lot of background on Motus for yourself at the reserve or students you might be teaching. And then we talk about the importance of Motus across the NERRS system. So why is Motus important for the NERRS? So we have collectively detected movements that reveal connections between the systems. So we have multiple different birds or other organisms that have been detected between multiple different reserve sites, which is super cool. So it's hard to know that connectivity between sites that are so vastly apart until we have a system like Motus in place where we can see, say, a painted bunting got detected by multiple different reserve sites, or a Kirtland's warbler, or all these other species. And it really shows the importance of the National Estuarine Research Reserve System for a lot of these species. So a quick example is 3 NERRS Motus towers where 106 individuals were detected. Of these individuals, 8 moved between 2 or more NERRS sites. And again, showing this importance for these areas for migratory species. So as of 2024, right now, 24 of the 30 reserves have worked with the Motus system. Of those, 20 reserves have at least one active station, which we're going to dive into in a minute. So here is a map that we're going to show. You can find information on the NERRS and Motus stations. So Evan?
Yes. So we're really proud of the work that we were able to do, getting all of these sites into this one central location. It really narrows it down from what just the general Motus website can give you. What Megan, our ArcGIS person that we had on this project, really fantastic girl. If any of you want to connect with her later, we can talk about that. She wanted to show how much Motus is being used by the NERRS already, and to kind of make it just like an easy one-stop shop for checking out these towers, these sites. And then we also have it, Marae, if you could scroll down, we broke it into regions so you can kind of more quickly get to where you want to go if that is like a way that is visually helpful for you. And Marae and I are going to demonstrate what it is when you pick a location.
And if there's more than one tower within a reserve, it has a star here, and all the towers are going to be shown. So
I think we have to click Mason Brow. We had trouble with state and national sites. So the state sites are sometimes included and sometimes not included, but that's something that we're still sort of hammering out the details with before we're all complete on that. So this, if we were to click for the Masonboro Island Tower, which is one of the towers that's closest to where we're located, you can see the site name, you can see information about the location, and then you can click that view button and it will bring you to the explore page. So this really just simplifies going to the Motus website. It makes it easier to find what you're looking for if you're looking for a reserve operated or partnered Motus tower.
We'll go back to this. It's taking a minute to load over there. Which we'll
it does that sometimes. Probably because it has so many sightings. Then we'll click Weeks Bay, one of the towers that we installed for this project. And you can see there it is in the boundary. If you look at a boundary and you see a red dot, it means that the tower is inactive. So for Weeks Bay, they only just started getting their first detections recently, but they have 4 detections now. I think that one might load faster.
Oh yeah, we can click on it and see if it decides to. Hopefully the Motus page decides to cooperate with us today because we'll be using it more throughout the presentation.
We were thinking that going to the Motus website to find a station is easy if you know what station you're looking for, but if you're looking for a large group of stations like the reserve system, it can be really challenging because they're all owned by partners, they're named for different things, and there's no like cohesive way, or there wasn't, to search for the reserve
as of today
sites.
This has gotten a new detection of a blue-winged teal.
Yes, so that's very exciting. And then it's had 3 wood thrush pass by. And so this just brings you to the explore site for that station. So you can look at the information from there. And if you wanted to, at that point, you could dive into that, the explore page more deeply. You could look at the individual animals, you could look at details of the station. You can do all those things once you get there, but this is a more centralized and easier way to access the reserve system Motus towers.
Thank you. Along the same kind of vein of the stations that we put up, we do have a photo gallery here if anyone's interested to see what kind of stations look like. I think that maybe we have kind of a mark on the way we build stations, so ours might look a little different than other ones you've seen, but that's kind of the beauty of Motus. You build them for where you are and your needs. And so we're just going to quickly go through the stations that we did build. This is objective 4, but we're going to just jump ahead and talk about it right now because it's within our story map. So the first tower we built was Narragansett Bay, which was beautiful. So we built this tower on the Lab and Learning Center located in Prudence Island. We had a lot of fun working with the staff there to put this station up. Here's a fun time-lapse video of kind of working on the antenna installation. So all the towers that we installed for this project had 3 166 antennas. So those detect Motus tags, and then we put up four 434 antennas, and those detect CTT tags. So these are dual modality stations, so detecting pretty much any kind of tag that's going to fly by, except tags on monarchs. These are going to be detected. We did all these on tilting bases, and so we were able to easily take them down and put them up for maintenance if needed, which did in a lot of cases require using something like a truck or a tractor to pull them up, but we made it work. And so that was our final station there. These were all 30 feet towers. Our next station was at Grand Bay at their Coastal Resource Center. For ease of use, we decided to put all these on buildings just so there could be easily taken down if there was a storm and there was a power source nearby and Wi-Fi, that you don't have to build them that way. Other ones we built do not need that. So we worked with the staff at the Grand Bay, which was beautiful, to put up the station there as well. Evan made these awesome time lapses for all of our stations that we deployed.
I think this is what Jennifer's son. It was really fun building these towers with everybody.
Yeah.
Getting to work with the staff.
And then we were able to lift these towers up. And we were able to also teach some folks from Audubon down there how to build towers. And they have since put up towers, which our stations have detected, which has been great for on lease turns. We then buzzed over to Weeks Bay and worked with that wonderful people over there. We actually built this one on a deck, which was quite interesting. So that's right on the water, hopefully a nice place to get detections, as we just saw with the blue-winged teal. So we were able to get these stations up and running. The last picture looks a little tilty. We got it more straight at the end. And then we went all the way across to the most distant reserve at Ketchmack Bay and had a lot of fun there as well. We again put the tower on their field station. We added the antennas and put these stations up. And so that is just a nice highlight of all of the towers that we were able to put up. There's more in the story map that we're going to kind of dive into in a little bit, including some education materials, how to explore and summarize the data. But now we're going to move on to an additional benefit of our objective 1. We're still kind of working with Motus to perfect this, but this is going to be a dashboard through the Motus website in and of itself, where the NERRS is its own region. So anytime that something gets included, a tower that gets put up within the reserve system, ideally it's going to be put directly onto this regional dashboard. So here we can find our region. Again, we've had a little bit of work that we've had to do to make sure the boundaries align. And so if a new tower gets installed, it'll automatically go on this map without anyone having to do anything. So if you go to regions, we're going to find the National Estuarine Research Reserve System. And within our dashboard, it does have some information about how to work with this website. So you'll see some instructions, if you would like them, for how to interact with the Motus dashboard in and of itself. And so here we have every reserve put in, and we can summarize by region. You can look at, you're able to compare different reserves if you would like. So you just press compare and then you can summarize. So you compare regions. That is just one way to do it. If you want to look at just stations or animals or projects or species, you can interact with this dashboard in that way. And this is just like the general Motus dashboard. But again, they have pulled out the National Estuarine Research Reserve as a nice example for how we can kind of split these regions. So again, you can see the boundaries in here, and then if there's a station, they should be included on this dashboard. Again, you can look at animals if you would like. So if you have a specific species you're trying to explore, this dashboard can be a little slow and clunky. So just keep that in mind. If you're trying to compare like 10 different stations, it's going to take a while. So yeah, so if you just want to look at animals, you can search animals up here. Say if we want to look at a Dunlin. So has all the information you might want. Evan, any other comments about the Motus dashboard?
The Motus dashboard is a great way to have fun for hours looking at Motus data that you didn't know you needed to know, but you probably need to know it.
And like Evan was saying, that the story map that we created is a really nice resource because nothing has a consistent way that Motus stations are named or projects are named. And so if you want to find a specific station, going to the story map and finding the station ID is going to be probably the easiest way to be able to come into your Motus dashboard and find your station, or link the link in there. Because you have to know like kind of the exact way that someone named their station, and it might be like an acronym. So having it all in one place in the story map is great, a great resource. So that's kind of how you might interact with this Motus dashboard that was created. And again, the region is NERRS specific, and there are some instructions on our website for how to do that, and also how to pull data if you're interested. So that is a good kind of segue into what Ray is going to talk about with the R code that he created. So pulling this data that you would like, again, the instructions are on there, and we can then explore the data more ways.
Great. Thank you, Marae. All right, I'm going to share the script with you all here. Okay. So Marae and Evan described some ways to examine data through the Motus dashboard, but you might also want to summarize and display data from your Motus stations on your own computer and do some different analyses. And this script helps you do that. So here we provide an example report, and these examples are applied to one station, but you can apply them to really any Motus station that you want. And so what I'll do is work through this with you and describe how to use this. So in these examples, we'll explore data from the station named NC near Masonboro Island, because that's near and dear to our hearts. That's close to us here in coastal North Carolina. And this report will show you how to prepare the necessary R packages. R is a statistical software that's freely available. It also shows you how to download the Motus data from the Motus website, and how to analyze and plot the Motus data, and also how to analyze the Motus data in relation to the NERRS SWAMP program, system-wide monitoring program. And so the goal of these examples here is really to encourage users like you all to perform similar analyses. And we developed this example report after talking with your colleagues from the NERRS to find out what they were interested in. And some common themes that we heard were they wanted clear examples, information that they could put into reports, information that they could share with the public, and information that could help facilitate new research on their properties. And so that's how we developed these examples. Okay, so let's see how to do this. So to get started with this, we're looking through an HTML document, which is available on through our dashboard and website, and opens up in any web browser. Okay, so you can open it in Edge or Chrome or any web browser that you want, Safari. We also provide a file that's called a .rmd file or markdown file. And that is a file that you would use in R statistical software. So I know some of you, maybe many of you out there have used R to do data analyses. And so you can open that RMD file in R and then edit it to analyze your own data. So again, these examples are meant to complement the results displayed in the Motus dashboard that Marae and Evan described. And again, they're conducted in R and require you to have an introductory understanding of R. And introducing R is kind of outside of the scope of this presentation here. But there are a lot of resources online to help you get started. And advanced users may also wish to explore additional analyses using the Motus package in R. We have a link to that here. Okay, so let's get started. Over here on the left, we see all the sections of the report here, starting with the overview. And next is attach R packages. And so first we'll need to install and attach some R packages to help analyze the data. Packages are used in R to perform specific functions. These are all freely available. So you could just copy and paste this information into R and use it that way. Next, you need to download your Motus data. We provide specific information on instructions on how to download your data. For example, you must be logged in with a Birds Canada user account, and we provide instructions on how to get that. It's free. Next, in that step, you will have saved your data as a CSV file to your computer. Again, we're using data from the Masonboro Island Tower. Next, we import your data into R using this function here so that R can understand your data. And then we do some things to examine the structure of your data. For example, we might look at the rows of data. The number of detections in this set was over 2,000. And we provide lots of notes throughout the script so that you understand what these things mean and how they work. We then show you how to prepare the data for analysis. So for example, how to set things like time zones and convert your data to time-based data. Okay, now we'll get into some of the more interesting results. So one of the things that we heard from your NERRS colleagues is that you'd like information on summarizing species and individuals that are detected by your tower. And that's really important basic information. Again, it can be shared in reports with the public and with other researchers and other people. So here's an example of how you can find the number of species and list of species detected by the station. And we provide code to prepare this summary. And it looks like here, this station has detected 25 species. Okay, and then we also provide a table of the species that have been observed at this tower. And here we see a list of all the species that have been detected here. Then you can save that information and export it, and then you can copy and paste it into a report. There you go. If you want your species list for a report, an end of year report, or maybe a report to a natural history program, you could get that here. Next, you might want to know the number of individuals per species detected at the station. And we provide ways to create a table that shows the number of individuals detected per year per species. Sometimes they're the same individuals. We also show how to summarize the number of projects and other stations that are served by your station of interest. This came up from your NERRS colleagues. They were curious, what impact does our station have in the broader network? So for example, here we see that our Masonboro Tower has served 56 different Motus projects. So animals from 56 different research projects have been detected there. And we can do other similar analyses. You might also want to display the number of detections that you have by month or hour. And we show how to make plots like this, where you can see the monthly count of unique animals throughout the year. December and January are in the 12 o'clock position here. What we see here is that the majority of activity is in August, September, October. That's during fall migration. Okay, so we see a lot of activity during that time of the year, which makes sense. You can also break this up by year. Here we see monthly count of unique animals across the years. Or you might just examine one species. And we chose the Kirtland's warbler for this example because we know that this bird migrates from Michigan to the Bahamas. It had previously been undetected on Masonboro Island visually in the past, but our Motus tower has detected them, which was really exciting. So they're flying through our neighborhood here and staying over on Masonboro Island en route from Michigan to the Bahamas. And we're able to detect that here. It's pretty exciting. We also show ways to present these data by hour. For example, here, you see a lot of activity at night, which makes sense. A lot of migratory birds move at night. And then we also show, in my last minute here, I'll show you how we provide an example of how to analyze Motus data in relation to the system-wide monitoring program data. And I know some of you out there diligently collect your swamp data, various types, and you might be wondering how you can incorporate Motus with that. So here's an example. So we show you how to download relevant swamp data, save it to your computer, and then import those data and plot animal data in relation to that. For this example, we plotted Kirtland's warbler detections in relation to barometric pressure. We had the hypothesis that barometric pressure might be a good predictor of Kirtland's warblers flying through. So here's a plot of barometric pressure in red and Kirtland's warbler detections in black. And what we see when we zoom in is that Kirtland's warblers come through when barometric pressure is increasing. This is a really cool finding, and this is consistent with a scientific paper from Cooper et al. In 2023, who found that Kirtland's warblers leave the breeding grounds for fall migration when barometric pressure has been increasing. So there you go. We found some really exciting results using Motus data and swamp data. All right, so again, this information is available through our dashboard and website, and I hope you all have fun with it. It's a pretty cool tool. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ray. If you want to stop sharing your screen, I'll reshare mine. Awesome. So yeah, I hope those of you who like R or are just starting to dabble in it will be able to go through that and enjoy it. So now we're going to look at our second objective, which was to develop freely available educational resources related to the Motus data across the reserve system. So here we did create that dashboard, and then we also created some curriculum intended for students in grades 6 through 12 that can be used in a variety of educational settings, which we'll go over in just a minute. Digital and printable resources for visitors at the NERRS site, and then also some social media content. So for those of you within the reserve system, you'll be able to have a link to this folder when it's completely ready, and this will have all the drafts of everything for you to use. So I'll just quickly go over, Ev and I are going to kind of go over everything we've created. So I guess we can start the social media, Evan, if you would like.
Sure.
Which one would you like to start with?
Their case studies is presently empty, but Motus Mysteries. Oh no, case studies isn't empty. Just kidding. All right, so these are just meant to be there for you if you need something for your social media. You know, a lot of reserves have somebody whose job it is to do the social media stuff, but there's, you know, we live in a world where content is always on demand. So there are Motus Mysteries, and that's just sort of like following an animal through its detections. And so in those, we kind of outline where the animals were detected by which stations and, interesting facts about the stations and or the animals. So right now in this folder, we only have one of those finished, but we have about 10 to 12 on deck. And then the introduction to Motus is meant for you to potentially like explain to your audience on social media what Motus is. And it's just a very broad overview of the goals, the benefits of Motus, and just like definitional. And then with case studies, those are just species highlights essentially. So it's just an animal that is frequently detected along the Motus network, and fun facts about that animal. So these are really just meant for to sort of heighten engagement and education among like the people who have sort of like light interactions with the reserves. So you can just post these things, you have them available to you to use or to not use, depending on what your agenda is. That's the social media. We also have created some brochures. This is the final product for the Ace Basin one, although we are still getting some final comments in. So you can see we have a nice photo of like the reserve site. We have links to reach the Ace Basin detections. And then we've chosen to highlight the top detected species here. So this is something you can have at your reserve, in your education center, or with your educator. If you don't have an education center, you can bring them to presentations or share them with your friends groups. Just so people can kind of engage with what's happening with your Motus tower. We also are going to be sending these to you as a PDF that you can edit as needed. So when your detections change, or if any of the information needs to change, that's something that you can fix as needed. We'll be sending hard copies out of these to all the reserves towards the end of the year.
And again, if you guys have any comments throughout, after you've looked at these, just let us know. We have been getting input from a lot of education coordinators and others to kind of perfect these for everyone. So what we also have are some signs that you're able to put at your reserve. We're not printing these for you, but there's a lot of different options. So say if you have a Motus tower and you want a educational sign in front of it, we do have some examples that you can use if you would like. They're in different sizes and they have a different amount of information included on them. So again, you can edit these yourselves if you want different information or more information, but then the basis is here for you. Or you can just take what we have and print one for yourselves, either way. So there is all this information on here. If you like these signs, you're welcome to take this template and print it. We would like to keep the messaging and the information pretty consistent across the reserve system, because the Motus is something that so many reserves have. It's really nice to be able to keep that information consistent across the reserve system. We also have a lesson plan. So this is kind of a fun way that as an educator or others can interact with the Motus data, including the story map and the Motus dashboard. So here we have an educator guide that goes through everything. So we have an activity of a table of contents of the activities. So we have an introduction, which is a PowerPoint that you can use if you would like. We have a Motus Mysteries website investigation. So that is on our Motus story map here. So we have our education and we have our Motus Mysteries. So that education portion is linked with the story map. They all have a different time period or a timeline associated. So if you just have time to do the Motus Mysteries, that's about an hour worth of information to give your students. If you have them for like 5 hours, you could do everything. So it's kind of plug and play with what you have time for and what your students seem like they would want. So again, we have the introduction, PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint kind of goes along with all these different things. So you can open the PowerPoint and kind of pick what you need out of it. We have our Motus Mysteries. We have working with Motus data, and this has a large activity sheet associated with it. So you would bring your students to this Motus dashboard and they would be able to learn all about it and go through different species and explore. And so that's just like an easy activity sheet for them to use. We have a way that they can create their own stories. They can find a species that they're interested in and create their own story, kind of like in Motus Mysteries example, and then some other supplemental activities that they might enjoy. So this educator guide gives you some learning objectives, and then each section of it has what it's for. So the introduction slide has a lot of information, so you can just take all of this and talk your students through the PowerPoint slides that are provided. And then we have the Motus Mysteries, and that is, again, the educator guide for how to work with your students with that, the working with data, and then how to create their own story, and then some other supplemental activities. This is the PowerPoint that is associated with it. So again, you're free to edit it as needed, or you can just use it exactly how we have it laid out for you. And then that Motus activity sheet for your students to go through. So that is the education curriculum component that we created for this. And again, those are going to be all linked in one central location for anyone to find and use. And the NERRS and beyond are welcome to use those. So those are the educational materials that we were able to create with this one-year grant. And then lastly, we have some in-person educational experience. So I'll toss it over to Evan.
We were able to get folks together on Masonboro Island to provide an in-person Motus tagging experience for some people. We had a couple of groups of less than 15 people each, but they got to get boated over to the island and be there for our banding and tagging operation. Each group got to see one bird get a Motus tag. With Motus tags, you can't put them on just every bird you catch. They have to meet certain weight requirements. But we did catch and band other birds that folks were able to see. And since doing this in-person educational experience, one of the birds has been detected on a couple of Motus towers headed south, including the Masonboro Tower and the Bird Island Tower, both local North Carolina Reserve towers. But it was so fun. It was really great to be able to have the in-person educational component as well, so people could really make the connection between the tagging and the towers and the science that produces.
Awesome. And if you want more information from Evan about that educational experience and how you might recreate that at your reserve, just let us know. So objective 4, as we've already talked about, was facilitate the construction of Motus systems at 4 different priority sites. Our objective 5 is to promote communication and collaboration across and among the NERRS. And so in order to help facilitate this, we're going to hold the first NERRS Motus working group. We decided December 18th from 3 to 4 p.m. A link will be sent out via the NERRS All listserv. And so we're going to run the first one to show you all how a Motus working group is usually run. They're very simple. It's usually a 1-hour call. It's very open. There's not really an agenda. Most people just come, talk about the towers they have, any questions they might have. It's just a place where people can come together and talk about Motus problems, Motus towers people want to put up. It's a really great resource. And so what we would like is for someone, after we have this first one, to be able to take this over. We're thinking possibly a quarterly one. Again, it would just be simple, create a Zoom link, facilitate a 1-hour conversation quarterly. You don't have to be a Motus expert, just be there in the room to facilitate conversation among people. But it'd be a really good way to keep the momentum of the Motus working across the reserve system, or else this knowledge might just disappear. There's also a lot of regional Motus working groups that you can be involved in, and we'll give you a list of those as well. So if you are in the Southeast region, there's a Southeast region Motus working group that meets monthly that you can join. They're all over the nation of these different working groups that you're able to join. as an additional resource. So from here, we are happy to take any questions that you all might have about this Catalyst grant and anything else. Thank you all. And thank you all to the reserves who have helped us throughout this process. It's been very helpful having communication and collaboration from multiple different folks across the reserve system. So we appreciate you all.
Thanks, folks. I think I mentioned at the beginning, but for those who maybe missed or joined later, you can raise your hand if you want to verbalize a question as well. So you can either use the Q&A feature, or if you want to verbalize something, you can raise your hand and then we can unmute you. See a question in the Q&A. Amazing work, thank you. Are the data being shared to CDMO, GBIF, or other repositories?
I think we're still in the talks with Megan about how we're exactly going to share everything. But if anyone has any, thoughts about that, please let us know. But that will all be parsed out at the very end of the project as well. But yes, it'll be on our collaborative page, definitely. And then we're not collecting a whole lot of data. So the Motus data just stays within the Motus dashboard in and of itself. But all the resources we're creating will be linked in a few different places. Yeah, we do. The Cape Fear Bird Observatory can be contracted out to build towers as well in the future. So if you know of other people who want to build towers or you have questions about it, you're welcome to reach out to us about that. I just saw the question in the chat. Will our final products be available to other groups outside the NERRS? Yes. So anyone can use these products. So they'll be linked definitely on our freely or the public NERRS collaborative page for the project, and possibly a few other places as well. So yes, anyone can use this. Will the Google files be available on the NERRS intranet? If that seems like a great place to store that, then that would be fine with us. Whatever seems like the best way to do it. Seems like probably the intranet would be a good place to put that if we can work with the folks at Collaborative to make that happen.
I know we've done stuff like that in the past before, so I think that's probably something you talk about with Megan during closeout steps.
Great.
But that's definitely something we've done in the past, is put things in multiple places where people can find them.
Yeah, I think like certain like the brochures and stuff will be sent to your reserve individually, and so not everyone will have access to every single brochure. So your reserve itself will have your own brochure, but the social media and stuff will be available for folks. Love to hear more about the bases of your towers. What would you like to know about the concrete tilting? Any specifics? Okay, so the base of our towers, you don't have to do this, but we thought just because these places are going to be not having necessarily Motus expert on hand, it's nice to be able to tilt your tower for maintenance or if a storm is coming or for any reason. Also for putting the towers up, it made it a lot easier. And so what we did was we built a concrete base. It was one
by one.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yes.
Yes.
1 square meter, right?
Foot.
Was it a foot?
I think it was a foot. 1 square foot. Cube.
It was longer than that. I think it was 2 by 2. And so
yeah.
2 by 2 and then 1 foot deep, I think. And so we were able to put the concrete base in. You have to make sure it's the exact distance from your building because you also bracket the tower onto the building. And then you put the base plate on. We use these things called J bolts or L bolts. They're about a foot long. Put them into the cement as it was drying, and then put your base on top. And then you're able to tilt that base down to do any work on it. And so we found it was a pretty easy system. We just, poured the concrete in the hole with some water and mixed it up right in the hole that we made it in, and then put that base on. So, but you do have to have ideally a building to also bracket that tower on if you're using the tilting base.
Mm-hmm. When we built towers on like on barrier islands, we did not concrete them in because that would have made it a more permanent structure and that would have changed the necessary permitting.
Yeah, I think if you can use a tilting base, if you also guy it out, if you're using those conditions, I think that's one way you can do it as well. But we liked having a power source and Wi-Fi. But if you're doing that, you need to make sure that you have a really good lightning protection system in place if you're putting it on an existing building. And will the recording for this webinar be sent out? Yes. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, just to verbalize that, anybody who signed up for the webinar, whether you attend or not, will get the follow-up email tomorrow that has the link to that link I just shared in the chat, basically. But it also goes to our YouTube channel. So it usually just takes us a couple days to do the full editing for the recording and add captions and all that good stuff. But within a couple days, usually it's done.
So do you have stash of parts? We have tower parts and connector cords with lacking receivers that emerge the equipment in place on a near in Northwest Florida. So that would be a great place if you had a NERRS working group where you could kind of combine equipment and share it amongst each other. So, for example, we kind of have like a Southeast North Carolina Motus working group, just like a little one, and we do have a shared shed of equipment. And so if we have a guy wire break or a little part break, then we usually have a place where we can source some materials and kind of have one kind of base area where we keep that. So that's very kind of region specific, but you can also connect with other folks in your area to see if anyone needs stuff. And these towers are great because you can make them how you need. So if you only have 2 antennas, then you can make a tower with that if needed, you know.
Well, maybe I'll add to Patty's comment that they're lacking receivers. That is something that local naturalist groups are sometimes interested in supporting. So for example, the Cape Fear Audubon supported some of the Motus Tower building in the Cape Fear region. A group associated with the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, bought a receiver for another tower. And it's a very achievable and kind of easy thing for them to visualize. And so if you have all the parts and the know-how and the support of a program like this to build a tower and all you need is a receiver, it might be worth reaching out to one of those local groups to see if they'd be willing to contribute in that way, given that you have all of this matching support.
That's good advice. I see we're pretty short on time, so I think I can start to wrap this up. And if folks have other questions, you can feel free to submit them either via the exit survey, which will close automatically as soon as you exit the session, or you can email us directly. The email that you got for registration should have a link to our email, the NERRS info email. So as I mentioned earlier, the recording will be available in the next couple days. So the link that I post in the chat will be the same one that's in the email. So it'll send you to the resource summary page and it'll have everything there. The next webinar coming up is next month. It is December 4th at, I want to say, 3 p.m. Eastern again. Yes. So keep an eye out for announcements for that one as well. And big thank you to our panelists for presenting today. And thanks for everybody who asked questions. And thanks for spending some time with us today. Everyone have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.